So one of the reasons I wanted to fight you on, Jimmy, because as I said earlier, everyone who argued against forced to vote probably should never ever be taken seriously ever again. So I didn't have a giant platform at the time, but I was a strong supporter with my small little Twitter and small little YouTube channel. Anyone who had basic, decent common sense understood the basic strategy. So I know, Jimmy, you want to chime in. I'll let you just go, but I want to play the video from Nico first. Let's watch the video. Nico break this down, and then I'll toss it right to give your thought, Jimmy.
It's all right, Elon. We understand why you're looking at Matt Gaetz like the last turkey leg at Thanksgiving dinner, because the entire country is looking at this man like that after he successfully ousted Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. Now, there is a long list of reasons as to why both conservatives and leftists wanted Kevin McCarthy out. But at the top of that list is the fact that Matt Gaetz and the majority of the country was tired of Kevin McCarthy working with Joe Biden to hold the country hostage in order to send money to Nazis. So I applaud Gaetz for sparking the fire of accountability that his party and the Democrats were unwilling to do until he decided to do so. Now, the ousting of Kevin McCarthy brought many of us back to the moment where we asked AOC and the squad to force the vote. Basically, when Nancy Pelosi was running for Speaker of the House, AOC and the squad had the ability to force a vote on universal health care in the middle of the pandemic or stop Nancy Pelosi from being House Speaker. In other words, we asked the squad to hold Pelosi accountable for not governing on behalf and in the best interest of her constituency. You know, like what Matt Gaetz just did. And what they told us is that trying to force a Speaker of the House to correctly implement legislation for the benefit of the people would never work. And therefore, we shouldn't even try it. You know, the same thing Republicans told Matt Gaetz when he announced that he was going to oust McCarthy. But Gaetz ignored the 98% of Republicans that supported McCarthy, and McCarthy was ousted anyway. It's almost as if holding someone accountable shouldn't be a matter of whether or not you can gain the political upper hand, but should only be a matter of whether or not it's the right thing to do. All I'm saying is Matt Gaetz got a lot of y'all progressives in Congress looking real suspect right now.
Nico the GOAT, as always. Jimmy, the floor is yours. What are your thoughts on the latest developments?
Well, it was amazing to watch all those people who called themselves progressives during Force the Vote 2 years ago bend themselves into pretzels to make healthcare activists look like they were crazy and make politicians look like they were sober and doing the right thing. Well, they were doing the exact opposite thing. They were refusing to use their leverage, and Matt Gaetz is embarrassing them right now. And of course, they're trying to pretend that what Matt Gaetz is doing shows dysfunction inside the Republican Party. What Matt Gaetz is doing exactly what anybody who doesn't take corporate money should do: be holding the politicians accountable. And he's pushing for reforms. Not only does he not want to fund the Ukraine war, which nobody in the United States wants to do anymore except tried and true blue Democrats. What he's doing is he's pushing for actual reforms, meaning you shouldn't push together a school lunch bill and a border bill and funding Ukraine in the same bill. He wants an all single issue vote. That's what progressives have been asking for my entire lifetime. He made that happen. He's pushing that through. Meanwhile, the Democrats and the squad sit on the sidelines and they point fingers at them, acting like they're the crazy ones. No, what the mask off moment was forced to vote. It proved that no matter how many progressive Democrats you vote for, they're always going to side with the establishment. They're always going to side with their career. As Chris Hedges told us, politics attracts the most mediocre of people to begin with. And these people are extra hyper mediocre because they think party loyalty is actually something the people who voted for them wanted. Of course, that's not what we wanted. We wanted them to be disloyal to the party, and we wanted them to oppose the party. In fact, when she was running for Congress the first time, AOC said she would not vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. And then, of course, people like Cenk Uygur, Ryan Grimm from The Intercept, everybody at The Intercept, everybody ran interference, everybody with an MSNBC contract, everybody ran interference for politicians and tried to smear healthcare activists. And that's exactly what happened. And we were proven right again. By the way, it's politics 101 to do what Matt Gaetz just did and what the squad was supposed to do. And they act like it was some kind of esoteric, faraway thing that Jimmy Dore thought up. It came directly from the DSA handbook that said we should do this. And it came directly from AOC's own campaign that said we have to have a vote on Medicare for all on the floor. I just saw a video yesterday. I swear to God, you're not going to believe this, of Ryan Grimm and Cenk Uygur saying how they have to now force a vote on Medicare for all.
Yes, I saw that.
It's just, these people are clowns. They're being revealed as clowns. That was a mask-off moment, and that's why the Democrats hate Jimmy Dore so much, because I was able to expose their bullshit, and that's exactly what Matt Gaetz just did too, which is why they tried to remember he was supposed to be a pedophile and he was supposed to go to jail, and the FBI. Well, that's exactly what they do to people they can't control, and that's what Bernie Sanders wasn't willing to stand up against. They gave him a threat like they did to Matt Gaetz. The difference is Matt Gaetz didn't care, and he went through with his promise, and Bernie Sanders folded like a lawn chair into the establishment. Joe Biden warmongering. He's a war pig now. He's having war protesters arrested instead of being against them. So it's a perfect victory for Force the Vote and for Jimmy Dore, and anybody who doesn't want to see that now is just a partisan hack, and now we know who they are.
We're gonna get to the Bernie again activists arrested. Before I move on, CJ, anything you want to chime in?
Let me insert something. I have a question. I want to play a short clip specifically about Jimmy, because to your point, this right here. Let me play it, and then it'll speak for itself. Let me play it.
Ask a couple of people I know who are sort of not necessarily directly involved in that, but sort of peripherally involved and might have known about that. And I heard they were going for other stuff. I think ultimately that turned out to be the Pago thing. And I don't that I say anything about it because I still felt like it's not a bad idea to, inject this notion of leveraging the vote. And I think and then I think it wasn't until I saw Jimmy turn it into, the next thing I saw about it was Jimmy doing a video saying that AOC was the thing that was the person that was standing between us and Medicare for all. She was a sellout. She was a fraud. And I realized, like,
she is.
Okay, so Sam, just to clarify, I want to clarify.
So I can stop it there. I heard you kind of chime in, but that's the right spot I wanted to stop for this first sort of question. So this is clearly, Jimmy, the trigger point. The trigger point for the people to go, okay, this is a good idea, but I'm still not going to do it. When you decided, or I guess he got some sort of emotional reaction to you critiquing the squad. So evidently you got tipped off, or there was some indication that the squad was not going to do this, or at least AOC, and you had a critique for that. And then I guess he got wind of this critique. And he said, oh, no, if you're going to use this great strategy to get healthcare to attack the people that I like, then I can't be for it. How do we be in coalition with people like that, Jimmy, to get Medicare for all? Because they always say we agree on it and they want to get it. But how do we coalition with people that would do something like this?
I'll coalesce with anybody who it was for Medicare for all, or for pushing the Democrats and pressuring them. Cenk Uygur made that same argument that he was for Force the Vote until Jimmy Dore said something mean about him. And then he decided to abandon Medicare for all because Jimmy Dore was mean. Hey, if you don't like Jimmy Dore and you didn't like Jimmy Dore's ask, why don't you do your own version of Force the Vote, Cenk? Mm-hmm. Why don't you do that? Why? He said we could have had we could have passed $15 minimum wage. They already passed $15 minimum wage in the House. It was the Senate. So we didn't have to force a vote on that. They already had passed it. So they're just making up stuff and flailing, and they look like the frauds that they are. If you have an MSNBC contract, if you take $24 million from DNC donors and Clinton donors, you're going to have to lie a lot about what you're doing, because what you're actually doing is you're in controlled opposition. And that's why we have infiltrators in the left. And that's exactly what this reveals, that all those people who pretend to be for for the progressives are actually infiltrators and controlled opposition.
Absolutely.
Because they take money from the people they're supposed to be organizing against. And this was a perfect mask-off moment and a perfect reveal. They even said Cenk and MSNBC contract said that McCarthy could become speaker, even after it was already explained to them time and time again. So they were just flat out lying. They have no credibility. They have no integrity. They have no dignity. Why? Because they're corporate sellouts, 100%. And this reveals it. And this is also why we can't have anything nice on the left, because people actually think these people are lefties. Jake Uger and TYT is for Russiagate. They repeated CIA talking point smears against Julian Assange. They're for every war. They're against the homeless. They are union busters. What the fuck makes these people lefties? They're not. They're just corporate toodles and mouthpiece, willing, and they're doing it for money.
He said he paid it back, Jimmy. You believe he paid back? He paid back $20 million? Yeah, go ahead.
Can I make a statement about that? So he obviously made that up on the spot because he didn't have a lie to cover that. And why do I know that's a lie? Because that wasn't a $20 million loan. That was a $20 million investment in that company, which is why he is now a part owner of that company. And he has a guy who sits on the TYT board. So there's a couple of billionaires who have representatives that sit on the board. So Jeffrey Katzenberg has a board member at the TYT, just like Buddy Romer's hedge fund has a board member on TYT. So there's this is all bullshit that he paid back a loan. He didn't pay back anything. It wasn't a loan. It was an investment. So that's another lie. And so he made so many lies that his last appearance with Brianna Joy Gray that you couldn't keep up with them.
You couldn't keep up with them. Go ahead, Nick.
Your assessment is exactly on RBN. We tell our audience, and we have the coverage that make it clear that these people are the enemies of the working class. They openly lie to their own audience all the time, delegitimize themselves in order to repeat Democratic Party talking points. Forced to vote was a very eye-opening moment because that was it's go time. Like, so we can have like small disagreements before then, but if you went during go time, you're like, okay, we may have disagreements, but at least you're willing to fight. But that exposed they wasn't willing to fight with us. Then we had a Jones Strike Summit. Jimmy was there. None of the professional managerial classes wanted to participate, right? We had Worker Strike Back invited me there, Kashama Sawan. I gave a speech at Worker Strike Back. You want to know how many social democrat channels covered that? They didn't cover it because they didn't want to give me attention because I gave a speech there. Now Nina Turner launched a Democratic version of Worker Strike Back, and now they all losing their mind.
So there was Medicare for All marches that summer after Forced to Vote also. And every city, 50 large cities in America, and Nina Turner went to a fundraiser instead of going to one. Same thing with AOC, same thing with Bernie Sanders. They went to fundraisers or ignored it. So these people are frauds, 100%. And it was a mask-off moment, and it broke my heart to see Bernie Sanders turn his back on Medicare for All, and for Nina Turner to turn her back on healthcare activists, smear them, and lie about it, and then not even show up for it. It was a real moment to see who's a self-dealer and a liar, because they all are.
Yeah, RBN.
Even Chomsky. Even fucking Chomsky.
Yeah, that guy.
You see, Chomsky is doing a masterclass on fighting disinformation. I don't got the segment ready. I'm gonna do one on that soon. He went from manufacturer consent to don't ever question the establishment information. I got a statement. I don't got it ready yet. I'll do a statement on that maybe later. I want to show you guys this here. But your point regarding the March for Medicare for All, we had 5 people that gave a speech at the March for Medicare for All at the RBN Network. Rome organized the Detroit March for Medicare for All event. None of them attended. None of them would attend. None of them would promote it. And then they wonder, why did we view them as enemies? Why do we view them as enemies? Jimmy gave a speech at the March for Medicare for All, right? So to me, it's very simple how you make this calculation on who's on your side or not. Do we agree with everything Jimmy say? Not exactly. But is he with us fighting against the establishment? Absolutely. The Social Democrats on the other side, on the other hand, they're fighting with the Democratic Party. I'm gonna play this clip. I got just a few more here. The establishment now is using the Kevin McCarthy drama in order to prop up the legacy of Nancy Pelosi, and in doing so, they are shocked and astounded at how cowardly the squad actually was. Because I don't know if all these people knew the strategy of forced to vote because they are corporate and not in our bubble, right? So they see what Matt Gaetz did. So they come into a realization like, holy shit, the squad could have did this to Pelosi. And they did it. So I'll show this clip and I'll get your response. I got just one more and I'll pass it back to you, CJ, and then we move on.
Sure.
I think Hill had the tweet of the day, actually, where he tweeted and he underscored that Speaker Nancy Pelosi, when she was Speaker, had the exact same very slim margin that Kevin McCarthy did. And for all the hemming and hawing that a number of progressives did do privately, nothing like this ever happened while she was Speaker of the House.
And in one way, you know, we hear all the time the far right and the far left, but even the most progressive members of Congress, Simone, you can't point to anything that they're simply trying to blow up the system, cause chaos, bedlam, or paralysis, which is exactly where the House is right now.
I think
this shit should be embarrassing for the squad. Or any elected progressive. Jimmy, what's your take? I'll pass it to you and CJ to react to this real quick before we move on.
Yeah, the AOC and the squad are bragging about the fact that they're in lockstep with the Democratic Party leadership, that they're not going to cause chaos. They're not going to try and disrupt. They're not going to push for reforms. They're going to fund wars. They're going to ignore people at home. They're going to get behind, they called Trump a fascist when he wanted to put up a border wall. Now Joe Biden's doing the exact same thing and wrecking 26 environmental regulations to do so in the press. They're not going to call him a fascist. They're going to go along with it. So again, I'll throw it over to CJ. It's a joke. They're a joke.
Yeah.
I do. I want to bring up a tweet from Jimmy. I love when Jimmy, when you quote tweet one of the NATO left. It doesn't matter whether it's Sam Cedar or Cenk Uygur, but it seems like the ones that you have with Cenk Uygur are the ones that are most entertaining to me, and I'm going to bring up one of them. Cenk had recently tweeted out this: if the Democrats vote with McCarthy, they have to ask for something that's actually going to help the American people, not just more earmarks and privileges for themselves. As for a vote on paid leave, it polls at 84%. There's no reason why we can't pass it. And then here is you catch wind of the tweet, Jimmy, and you say this: Cenk is now advocating for the Democrat strategy of force the vote. He's hoping you forget he lied about it and sided with crooked politicians for slandering grassroots activists when the Democrats actually had power to do it. Fraud squad. What is your reaction, Jimmy, to just some of their reactions, Sam Cedar and Cenk in particular, because subsequently since Force the Vote, those two have been talking about it. And, what has been what is your reaction to some of the things they've been saying subsequently about Force the Vote?
My reaction is right there. I just reminding people that they're what the people who opposed Force the Vote did. I don't look at their rhetoric. I look at their actions, and their actions said that they sided with crooked politicians while they were smearing healthcare activists. And when we were asking AOC and the squad to do exactly what they campaigned on, the whole point of the Justice Democrats not taking corporate money is so they could do something like Matt Gaetz just did, and they refused to do it. So there's absolutely no point to the Justice Democrats. There's no point to the squad, and there's no point to people like Cenk Uygur or TYT or MSNBC contract, because there's already an MSNBC. There's already a CNN. And so now we have another one in Breaking Points with Crystal and Kyle. Yeah. It's the same thing. They're just like that. They've all sold out to the establishment, which is why we have to expose these people so they don't get their hooks into real progressives. Real progressives smell a rat, and I smelled it a long time ago with these people, and now they're exposed 100%. And of course, all they can do is lie and try to make it about Jimmy Dore. It was never about Jimmy Dore. It was always about the running on the strategy that AOC and the squad and the Justice Democrats advocated for when they were campaigning. It's not about me. It's coming straight out of the DSA handbook. But they have to make it about me because I'm an incendiary political figure. Why am I incendiary? Because I actually held politicians' feet to the fire and exposed them and they want access. That's exact. Look at the people who are interviewing these people. That's all they need is a steak dinner and an interview, and they're bought off. It doesn't take much.
Steak dinner. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Nick.
the last portion I have on the Force the Vote segment, one thing that Bernie and AOC defenders say to me all the time, there are less and less of them these days, right? But what they used to say, they used to think we made up expectations of them. They're like, well, you criticizing them because they won't force the vote. You criticizing them because they're not doing this, they're not doing that, because they're not following all your directions. And what I am doing, I just want them to follow their promises. I didn't project anything on them at all. And that's what they will say. They said we project stuff on them that they never said. And that's the new way to defend the squad. But only thing I asked them to do was stuff that they said. For example, Bernie said he's going to start a political revolution. A political revolution. Like, so it's not my fault when I misinterpret that, Jimmy, CJ. I think you want to start a revolution when you say shit like that.
You weren't misinterpreting Bernie. Bernie was just lying. He was never real. He was always a sheepdog for the establishment. He was always been a war pig. He's a war pig through and through. He smears peace activists. He smears healthcare activists. The guy that there's nothing worse than a wolf in sheep's clothing, and that's what Bernie Sanders is. That's what the TYT is, and that's what the Justice Democrats are. They're all wolves in sheep's clothing, and I'd rather have a wolf in wolf's clothing because then we can fight them.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we get to Bernie next. That's probably my fault for triggering the Bernie rant. But let's get to the LC now. That's my fault.
It's hard not to. Just say the name.
It's hard not to. I can't stand that motherfucker now, man. But this is Glenn Greenwald accurately debunking this bullshit that we projected something on them that they never said they was. Here's Glenn. AOC, as she does on a virtually daily basis these days, boasts what a good, loyal Democrat she is. I guess I should read this tweet first. I'll read the tweet that prompted this. And I think this is what you mentioned as well, Jimmy. And this is what she tweeted 2 days ago. I tell you, in 2019, Dems had to elect the Speaker, oh Jesus Christ, and the numbers were tight. It was my first time voting on the House floor. When my name was called to vote, all the GOP looked at me when I voted for the Speaker. The party under McCarthy leadership booed me. Run the tape. So there she is, bragging about being a fucking obedient. Before I read Glenn's tweet, Jimmy, CJ, would you guys have any reaction to that? Because that's actually crazy, where she just sent this tweet out, where she just brags about being a loyal foot soldier to the Democrat Party. But anyway, I'll play this.
Just the phrase "run the tape" is like you just saying like I've dropped the mic, like you did something good. It's truly astonishing rewriting the history that this person is doing right here. But go ahead.
So I'll just play this this tweet where Glenn is calling us out. She boasts about what a good, loyal Democrat she is, now proudly recalling she voted for Pelosi. Except in 2018, while running, I asked her would she vote for Pelosi. So let's see what she says.
Very deep level.
So we just have a little bit of time left. Let me just ask you a couple of what I hope are quick questions. Your opponent, Congressman Crowley, has been pretty upfront about his hopes to replace Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer in the Democratic top wing of the Democratic leadership once they retire, or maybe even before that. For as long as I can remember, the Democratic Party in the House has been led by Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer. So if you are elected, will you agitate for different leaders leading the Democratic Party in the House caucus, or do you think that Pelosi and Hoyer should continue to be in those leadership positions?
No, I think that we need new leadership. I think the idea that we should have the same leadership for more than one generation is probably a mistake in American politics in general. When I think about my opponent trying to take Nancy Pelosi's seat, it's like, why? Like, what has he done? And I think that what we need,
the ability just to lie like that, man. This is a sociopath, psycho, whatever one that's technically correct term.
Need to really look at and value. It goes back down to the idea of valuing fundraising and equating fundraising with leadership. And they're not the same thing. I think that we really need to start kind of changing our standards for leadership and what we define and what we respect as a party. And it's not to say that, it's not to speak to Pelosi's leadership, but it's to say, what company oftentimes has the same CEO for 20 years, or, you know, it's very rare that that happens. And what government has a president for the same president for 20 years? And the idea that the third most powerful seat in the country should just be rotated in and out by the same two people for generations, I think is a mistake in our government. Government is.
Now, I like to make fun of myself, but this is why I advocate grace, because was we so wrong to support this person? You know what I mean? I want people to understand that Bernie and AOC committed a massive fraud on the working class that still a lot of people haven't even comprehended yet. But I've spoken of Jimmy and CJ. I get that reaction.
Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
They took they continue to take millions and millions of dollars from working class people and then use it to fund Ukraine while they do nothing for working class people. In fact, they use their rhetoric and they use their position to prop up Joe Biden, who's a strike buster, and he came out directly against working people. Everybody trying to memory hold that Joe Biden crushed the railroad workers strike, the railroad, which is the glue that holds capitalism together inside the United States. And if they would have went on strike, it would have set the tone for workers coast to coast, and they can't have that. So that's why they made sure that they were good little boys and girls, and they marched in lockstep to crush that union. So they all did that, by the way. They all crushed that union, including AOC and the Squad and the Justice Democrats and Joe Biden, and now they're still taking money from working people to prop up Joe Biden and his warmongering machine. And it's just despicable. It just if there was ever a moment for people to reject the two parties and to reject Democrats, it's now. But they keep selling that lie, just like Cornell did when he says that Trump is a fascist and Biden isn't. Joe Biden is the greater evil, and I'm not the first one to say that. I'm quoting radical black activists who said that in front of me, that the Democratic Party is not the lesser of two evil. They can do stuff that the Republicans can't. And if Donald Trump was trying to ramp up a war with two superpowers at once, everybody would be screaming with their hair on fire. But because it's Joe Biden and the Democrats, and they have the blessing of Bernie Sanders and AOC and the Squad and the Justice Democrats and the media, everybody's silent. Where is the outrage? Even Code Pink is afraid to stand with Republicans who are against funding the Ukraine war. They'd rather go to a fundraiser for AOC and not say a goddamn thing, which reveals them to be frauds and cosplaying. That's all they are. So I don't remember what the question is, but